third part of this talk with Zach, my old sous chef from our old job back in the day. And for those who are just now joining us who haven't watched the other two segments, this is Zach. Once again, he's sous chef at the club that we used to work at together, and we worked together for quite a few years. How many years did we work? 5 years or something like that?
5 years, yeah.
Yeah. So you you worked with me for long enough to you know see this stuff in real time, and you were there for it. I mean, you would. I mean, we were friends, so I mean, you came over and hung out with me at my house, and
Yeah, I worked for you for 5 years, but I've known you for almost 10.
okay, yeah, yeah, because
Yeah,
we, I mean, because we've known each other since
yeah,
since we first met. When I first
yeah,
hired you at the club, and we've been friends ever since.
right.
I mean, you're a really good guy, man, and
Appreciate that.
yeah, oh, absolutely, man. I mean, we stayed in touch. I mean, I've pretty much stayed in touch with pretty much everybody from back in
Yeah,
those days. I mean, that's the thing about it, man, is that, even though I was the chef or whatever, man, I was friends with all of you guys. I don't think that I was ever that like kind of boss that like treated you guys like y'all were below me or anything like that. I mean, I considered you guys to be just as equally as important as I was or whatever. I just didn't see myself as being above anybody. I was just the guy that directed things. That's all it was. And I'm still friends with basically everybody that I worked with back in the day.
yeah.
There's a couple people not so much, but for the most part, still am. And the thing is too is that I've always been a pretty good judge of character, and if I didn't think they were going to work out, I usually didn't hire them. And most of those people, I mean, for the most part, it ended up most of the people that worked, with us stuck around for a long period of time. Um,
Yeah, some are still there.
yeah, so actually, there's only like one person still there, isn't it?
Two, two.
Really?
Yeah,
From the kitchen?
yeah.
I know Juice is still there.
Yeah, Juice and Alex.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
know.
they brought Alex back. Yeah,
Oh, Alex is back again. I know he watches the channel too.
does he?
Yep. Yeah, I'm
Yeah, I
sure.
still talk to him. I still talk to him as well. We text back and forth every once in a while.
I haven't spoken to him in quite some time. I need to reach back out to him. I've spoken to
Yeah,
him, like in the past few months, but it's
yeah.
probably been a couple months since the last time I spoke to him. I always get messages from Juice at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
I can tell when Juice has been out hanging out because I always get, "Hey chef," and it's like, "What you been up to?" And I'll wake up in the morning. I'm like, "Well, Juice was out partying last night because he's messaging me
yeah,
at 3 a.m. I'm not up at 3 o'clock in the morning."
yeah.
But anyway, so we had uh where did we leave off at? What were we talking about? We're gonna get off of here. Do
I'm
you
not sure.
remember?
We
Yeah, I don't
talked about
remember
so
exactly what we were
much.
talking. Yeah, we've talked about quite a bit.
Uh,
I know you had a couple stories that you wanted to touch on. Did you touch on all of them at this point?
the one we haven't gotten to, which was I thought of it because of the video I watched yours the other day about when you thought you had broken your foot
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you showed up to work with that brace on. We can get into that one if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so you came to work and our back door had like 6 steps and then went to a little room and then had like 3 more steps.
Hmm.
So we were in there prepping and all of a sudden we see your like hands come through the door and you're like pulling yourself up these 2 little steps and we were like, what's going on? And then we see the boot on your leg and we're like, what happened to you? And you're like, well, I think I broke my foot. And me and the other cook just kind of looked at each other and we were like, how or why? Like, how do you think you broke your foot? And you're like, I don't know what I did, man, but I think my foot's broken. We're like, you just don't break bones like that. What happened? And you were like, I have no idea. And
Well,
I
hey,
don't
to
think you.
be fair, we used to have to carry our own kitchen equipment into that building. And we did a lot of that back in those days. We get a new range, and those ranges weigh 3,000 pounds. And like we had to hee haul it into the building up those stairs. And
Is,
I injured myself a lot doing that stuff.
okay, was any of that related to the
It,
gal thing? Had we
it,
just
it
done
was,
that? Is
it,
that when
we
we
had,
got the new salad
we,
station?
we had just got new equipment in during that period of times too. So
Okay, so I didn't remember that.
I thought that maybe I'd hurt myself, which I kept getting pancreatitis when I was at the club too, which I thought I hurt my back bringing that equipment in, but that's not what it was. I had
Okay.
pancreatitis.
That must have been when we got that new salad station because that thing came like bolted to wood like a giant shipping crate,
Yep.
and we had a really hard time getting that in the back door. So I didn't know that was around that time.
Yeah.
Um, so you show up with this boot on your leg, and I don't even think you worked the whole day because you couldn't walk.
Yep. No,
um,
as a matter of fact, I was there that whole day.
were you?
Yeah, because I remember sitting on the stool and Jay kept walking back in the kitchen. I'm not gonna say their name, but Jay kept coming in, the bacon eater, kept walking into
Pitter
the
patter is what we used to call him. Pitter patter.
yeah, he kept walking to the kitchen and I was sitting on the stool and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't walk, man." Like I had to take like my shoe off, like take that boot off of my foot because it was hurting my foot so bad. And I didn't know what was going on. I really thought that I had broken my foot.
So when did you go to the hospital? Then was it the next day?
It was a couple days later. I worked for a few days with that gal.
Okay. So I remember that weekend though, we used to do this tableside cooking event
Hmm.
where we would have this cart with a flat top, maybe a burner on it. We'd have all our prep
Chef's
underneath
table.
the cart. Yeah, and we would do the table to table. And so you'd have 10 top tables, a whole restaurant full of them, and you'd go to one table, you would cook in front of everybody, you'd have somebody helping you plate, and then you would serve the table. And it was an interactive experience where the guests got to talk to the chefs, and
Hmm.
you got to watch them cook, and we throw some fire on there and make it look exciting for them. And then you would have one or two people going behind you after they were done and doing some kind of like flaming dessert or
Yep.
something really cool. um so I get to work, I want to say it's probably like a Friday or Saturday morning, and you called me and you're like, hey, I'm at the hospital, I'm not coming in tonight. And it was that night.
Yep.
And I was like, at that time I was still kind of new to, the whole club thing and being in front of people. And I had social anxiety when I first started. I didn't like to be in front of people. I didn't like to work stations. I didn't like to do the pasta or omelet stations. I did not like being around people. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And you're like, you got to do the dinner. And I was like, okay. Um,
And I had
so I had
written
a
the
real
menu,
bad thing.
and I had written the menu for this thing. Like you hadn't even seen the menu for this, I don't think yet.
No, so we
You're
were on
like
the
on the
part where
phone
you
with
crack duck.
me.
Dude, it was duck l'orange and some kind of fillet dish. And so I didn't have my help at the table, so I had to have like Bailey like pre-searing fillets so I could just finish them tableside. And so I was making the l'orange sauce literally in a pan per order at the table, and then um I would have to. We had steps out in the dining rooms too. There was two different sets of steps, just a couple, two, three steps that went to other rooms. So I'd have to like get the GM to have like help me carry the cart down to the next room. And it's like, well, this table's ready. This table's ready. So you're literally darting all over the restaurant instead of doing like one room at a time. They didn't think about that. You could just do five tables and then to go to the other room, do five tables.
Yeah.
No, it's like this table, that table, that table. So the whole thing is just chaos. I wasn't prepared for it. We did it, and then I had Juice and Bailey doing like the flaming like cherry jubilee dessert behind me, so it worked out.
You guys did a
Um,
great job with it, man. I remember
yeah,
him telling me, Jay told me the next day, he's like, Zach actually did a really good job. Like
well, we didn't
it
have
was
a choice. Failure is never an option. You know what I mean?
no,
Especially when
it's
you have
not.
a membership paying monthly dues. You have to buy a certain amount of food in that
Yeah.
month. They're very, very judgmental. You know what I mean? They know what they want. They want it good. They want high quality stuff. Um, so I had that mindset already instilled that like failure is just not an option. We're just gonna get through it however we're gonna get through it. Um, but that week and that night was stressful, but it was good. It pushed me and it made me a lot more comfortable doing other things.
Yeah.
Was it frustrating at the time? Sure, it was. Because I don't remember how many days you were out, if you came back the next day or not.
It was a few days.
I know you were in pain. The other, but that wasn't the first time. Also, I don't know, and I just thought about this when we were taking a break. Um, there was that chef's table. It was on a Saturday. It was like a 12 to 15 person chef table. You had written the menu for it, and Jay came in and you had called out with gout, and you're like, "Hey, you got to do the chef table for me tonight. I can't do it. I can't be there." And this was cooking straight in front of them, talking to them about what I'm doing. I didn't like doing that. But Jay walks in, and I'm not sure if you remember this one or not. He saw your menu and he goes, "Well, I don't like a couple things on here." And I was like, well, chef wrote the menu. I don't know what you want me to do about it. And he goes, well, we're going to change some of the things on the menu. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's his menu. It's his show. I don't want to change nothing without his permission. And that guy, that GM, put me in a real hard spot that night because I didn't want to step on your toes, change anything, but at the same time, the general manager was telling me what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so we edited like two things on the menu, did the chef table, everything went fine. But I was probably more stressed out that night than I was doing the other one because I had to change the menu. You know what I mean? I didn't
Yeah.
want to. And I think I told you the next day, I'm like, dude, you made me change it. You got so mad. You're like, well, why didn't you call me? I was like, well, what was that going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just had to be, it had to happen at the time. Um, but he put me in such a crappy situation with that. You know what I mean? You got, my chef who I look up to and I respect, who, made this art, his menu, and he wanted this done a certain way, which I will respect that and do it. And then you got this guy telling me not to do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't like that position. And that was just kind of the club scene too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Um,
I was out, so he saw it as an opportunity to just do whatever he wanted to do.
yeah,
Speaking on that, one of the things that I've spoken about on here, is that back in the day I used to have kind of a bad temper. I've never been that bad of a tempered person. Like I have a bad temper, but I never like freaked out that much at work.
right.
Um, but you saw me lose it a few times. But I mean,
Yeah.
for the most part, though, I was pretty chilled out guy. I mean,
Yeah. So I never saw you like throw anything. I want to say I heard a story about you throwing a potato at the wall and then telling somebody to clean it up. Am I right about that?
that happened once, yeah.
That was before I got there.
Yeah,
Um, I saw you get mad and like frustrated, but you would just walk outside.
yeah.
You know what I
No,
mean? You would just go outside and nobody would talk to you for a minute, let you smoke a cigarette and cool off, and then that was it. You were chill, man. Like we would just be at work, like telling stories and joking around and laughing, and when it came time to get down, we would get down. But it was always a good environment, you know.
no, that was my point. Is that I wasn't the
Yeah,
type of person that was in there like just being a complete jerk to you guys all the time. I mean, for the most part, I was, I treated everybody with respect. Uh,
yeah.
Once again, I'm friends with most of the people that worked with me back in the day. So, if
There
I
was
would,
definitely a there's definitely a high level of respect. I remember if there was ever an issue, um, we did this quite a bit. And even if there was an issue, if you just had to talk to me about another employee or the managers there or a server, we would always go and walk outside the wall.
yeah,
And we would have a private conversation out of earshot of everybody. It was never any reprimanding in front of anyone,
no,
no belittling, no disrespect. It
no,
was always a private one-on-one conversation.
yeah,
Um, we talk about it, we fix it, we move on, and
yeah,
that was always something I respected a lot. That there was no public humiliation, which other people like to do in other restaurants that I've been
yeah,
around in. So
no. I never was like that, man. I
no, no, no.
I had too much respect for you guys to do that kind of stuff to y'all, man. And the thing is that, once again, I didn't look at anybody as any different than me. It was all like I respected you guys. Like I wanted to show you guys the respect that I wanted to get from you all. So like, why would I talk down to you or belittle you
Yeah,
guys or like chew you out in front of people or any of that kind of stuff? That just wasn't my style, man. Um,
yeah.
I do remember embarrassing you one time because you tried to call off on a Sunday. It was was it just a Sunday night? Yeah, you tried to call off that Sunday night, and I'll never forget because I wanted to go home, and you tried to call off, and I was sitting in the office with Jay, and when you called, I said absolutely not. I said you better be here. And you were like, "Huh?" Don't think you were expecting that answer from me. And I was like, be here. I don't care." So you showed up and you're like, "Oh, I'm so sick. I don't feel good." And it was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night or something like that. And I just decided, I was like, "So Zach, I have this good friend of mine that saw you last night when you were downtown because you tried to tell me, nah, man, I did not go drinking last night. I promise. I just don't feel good." I'm like, "No, you're hungover, dude." And that's when I went, I had a good friend that saw you last night. They said you were at the bar at 2 a.m. and you looked at me and you went, "Who did you talk to?"
Well, so it was in the morning. I was trying to call in. It wasn't at night. It was in the morning.
Okay, okay.
Because it was brunch, and I showed up there. You're like, no, you need to be here, and I was like, man. So I go up there. Funny thing about that, and we've talked about this a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I was at an upstairs bar in town.
Just
Shoulder to shoulder
don't say
people.
my name.
I want shoulder to shoulder people. And this dude comes up and he goes, "Hey, you know Chef, right?" And I was like, and he said your first and last name. And I go, "Yeah, man, I work with him. Why?" And he was like, "Oh, cool, right on. Like I know him too." I'm like, "Okay." And then like we got separated by the people. So a gentleman who I have no idea who he is, I couldn't point him out in a lineup today, used your first and last name and asked if we knew each other, which was very weird. And then
Yeah.
the reason I wasn't telling you the truth because anytime I went out drinking, you guys would just berate me. Oh no,
Oh, I
oh
know.
you went
Well,
out last night.
actually,
Oh,
it
dude.
wasn't me. It was the other guys that always gave you a
It was
hard
the other
time.
guy. But so like honestly, I just got tired of hearing it. I'm like, yeah, I went out. I'm an adult. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
And so finally, I just started saying, no, I didn't go out. I was at home just because it was just easier not to listen to his crap all day. Because I mean, we both know how he was. He was a very judgmental, grumpy man. So I just didn't want to hear his crap. Um, so, but it was weird because that dude asked specifically your name, and then the next day you pulled that joke on me, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was out. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
it was too perfect
Yeah.
to not how it
And
worked
and
out.
I
You
was
know, so
full of it too. I hadn't talked to anybody because I wasn't going out really that much at that period of time. I hadn't spoken to anybody downtown. I just was like, I'm gonna see what happens. And I just said that out loud, and you're like, all right, I was out last night. I was like, see, I told you.
yeah, you were like, you're so dumb. Like
You
you're like
told on
so bad.
yourself.
I'm like, that's weird. Yeah, it was weird. No, you never went downtown, man. I try to get you to go out. I don't think you and I have ever gone out downtown one time.
Do what now?
I said, I don't, you and I have never gone out downtown, not one time.
No,
You would
yeah,
never go out,
I think we've been out together before.
not downtown.
I used to go out with the guys every once in a while.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever gone. I know we went to that Mexican restaurant. We may have gone to like a meat rancho or something.
I don't know. I don't know. I used to
Hmm.
go out with the other guys all the time. I don't know. You were always off doing other things, so
Yeah,
you had your own little group of friends that you hung around with and stuff like that.
yeah.
So, um, but anyway, so we talked about all the stories that we were going to talk about. I guess let's spend these last few minutes just kind of talking about just addiction in general.
All
Um,
right,
you've had your fair share of addiction.
right.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to elaborate on any of that or whatever, but you've fought addiction in your lifetime as well, and
Yeah,
you've gotten sober at this point yourself.
yep.
Um, just what would you like to add, as far as like sobriety and things that you've found along the way, things that might be able to help other people that helped you get sober and things like that.
Well, I think that it changes per person what works and what doesn't. I've never been a fan of a 12-step program. I've never gone to a rehab. I just knew it wasn't something that I wanted for myself in my life. Also, I've got children, and your children don't get to pick and choose what kind of parents they have, so you shouldn't put
Yeah.
them through negative things like that. So that was a big boost for me getting my stuff together. Um, what really helped me was honestly, man, being out in nature. I love to be out by water, even if I'm just like walking down by a river, I'm out in some trees, I'm just laying out in the sun. You know what I mean? I like to be out in nature and something that's like tranquil, like a river flowing by, or just something that's peaceful away from the normal. You know what I mean? Um, and with addiction, it's just you have to want something else. You have to want you have to admit to yourself what you've done wrong too. You have to forgive yourself. For me, when I got sober, I had like all these repressed because I was not a great person back then. I had all these repressed like thoughts and feelings, and honestly, I had nightmares for years about things that I had forgotten I had done, things that I had blocked out of my memory in my mind. I had nightmares about it. I would wake up and be like, I totally forgot I did that. I totally forgot that I said that, and these things were all coming to light. um, and then you just have to forgive yourself. You know what I mean? I choose not to live in the past. I know what my past was and I know what I did. The people that I thought or the people that are important to me and close to me, I reached out to them, I talked to them, I apologized to them. Obviously, you can't apologize to everybody, but the people you still want your life close to, you can apologize to. But no, it's self forgiveness. Is I think people keep themselves feeling guilty, they might be sober but they still have the addiction mind frame where like I don't need to tell myself that I was an addict at one point in my life to remind myself to not be an addict. I feel like once I'm not doing the drug or the alcohol, then I'm not an alcoholic or a drug addict. And that's kind of just a different view I have on it, and that might not work for everybody.
Yeah.
People might need the structure of the 12 steps in the rehab, and that's fine if you do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think self-forgiveness is a big thing.
No,
You
you're
know, you just
absolutely right.
yeah. And then finding something positive to, I've recently, you and I haven't talked about this, but just recently I have kind of found God. I've been studying the Bible.
That's
Um,
awesome,
you know,
dude.
I've always been like one foot in and out the door with that. That helps a lot. So I think through the grace of God, everything is possible. And just finding meaning and purpose, find new hobbies. I love coffee more than anything now. I drink a lot of coffee.
Me too.
Um, coffee is my friend. I drink coffee all day long. But just find other things you enjoy. You know what I mean? Slow down a little bit. Life's fast. Don't let it pass you by. Um, yeah, and reach out when you need help. That's about it.
You just brought up some really good points, man. Self-forgiveness is a
Yeah,
big one because I think a lot of us, we beat ourselves up and we can't forgive ourselves, and that leads down this path of like, almost depression, because
yeah,
you can't forgive yourself. You keep beating yourself up for the things that you did in the past because you're right. When we're in active addiction, we're not good people a lot of the time. Some people are just the same person that they are as an addict or not. But, with me and with you, I wasn't a bad person, but I told a lot of lies.
yeah.
And they were small lies. I wasn't coming in and like I wasn't lying to everybody's humongous lies. It was little lies, but those little lies add up, and then people stop believing us. I'm sure that when I come to work and I tell you guys, oh man, I don't feel good today. My stomach hurts. You probably went, yeah, probably because you drank a half gallon of vodka last night. But I might have actually really been sick that day. But in your mind, you're
Right.
thinking this guy's come into work every single day this week saying his stomach hurts. He reeks of vodka. He probably got drunk last night again. And he told a story. We caught him lying about this. So how do you believe him? And that's the kind of things that happen when we get into those paths. But we have to forgive ourselves and just go, that's who I was when I was in active addiction. That's not who I am now. And I can forgive myself. And like you said,
And
you don't go ahead.
so I will say too, like I was a very functioning addict. I always had two jobs. I always had a car. I always had a house and an apartment. Like I always had my ducks in a row. I had all my bills paid, and I was just using during this time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I didn't want to be one of those people out in the streets struggling, not knowing when the next thing's coming to me. I made sure that I had enough money to pay for all my stuff, all my payments, and I was good, and I was using the whole time. And that was fine and good until it wasn't. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then kind of when it wasn't, it was like a year that I kind of fell apart, and then I decided to move. So it didn't
What
take
what
long because I
was
knew that.
what was your rock bottom?
Um, Without getting too much into it, I had to move out of my apartment and sell my car because I needed money, and I was living somewhere in my car.
I didn't realize you actually were living in your car for a period of time.
That was right before I moved.
So you were homeless for a
Yeah,
short period of time.
kind of. I was staying at somebody's house, and there was also a lot of other people staying at this house, kind of in and out. We were kind of all over, the place, and it wasn't a good situation. It wasn't safe to have my kids around, so
Yeah.
they were safe with their mothers, but I had made some decisions that led to me kind of losing some stuff without getting too much into detail about it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then I
yeah.
just knew I needed a fresh start, and that's when I reached out to some family in South Carolina, and that's how I ended up getting down there.
Okay.
Um, so that's where I was when I met you, and I've kind of talked about that stuff. Um,
The thing
so
is
me,
that I don't think I wanted to pay too much attention to your story of getting sober because I think it bothered me.
yeah. Well, I had never done the bar scene also. Like by the time I moved there, I was about 30 years old. I had never gone out in my 20s and done the bar scene. I was doing other things. So when I moved down there, all my friends drank. So that's why I started drinking really when I was down there.
Yeah.
Um, but the sobriety with everything else, man, yeah, that was just something I had to do. You know what I mean? I didn't want my children deserve better than having a father that is like that, you know what I mean? And that's hard to say, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's something I don't really talk about because it's in the past. There's no reason to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, but no, they deserve more, and that was my motivation behind all of that, and it worked.
Did you ever have like an aha moment when like towards the end of using where you went, what am I doing?
Oh yeah. And I mean, there was just if you look back at it as like it was just a slow decline that you don't really realize is happening while it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because one thing happens after another, and it's like, well, shit, I lost my job today. What am I going to do now? And it's like, oh, I don't have money for rent. What am I going to do now? And but no, I think it was when I mean there was a lot going on at that time, but it was probably when I was living in my car and I was like, man, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I don't enjoy this. Like this isn't fun anymore. I'm getting to that I'm getting to that point to where there's no return. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for so long. It's like, okay, I'm either going to do this for the rest of my life or I'm going to change now. And I loved cooking at that time. I'd worked at all kinds of corporate restaurants. Like I said, I held two jobs. Things just got crazy for a minute. Um but it was at that point where I'm like, I'm either going to do this for the rest of my life or I'm going to not do this anymore. And I chose to not do it anymore. I never wanted to be the people around me, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't have any peers. I didn't admire anybody. Everybody disgusted me because they were off doing whatever they were doing. And it's like, I didn't like the people. I didn't like the scene. I didn't like the town I was in. I didn't like any of it. And so I was like, I'm out of here.
And that's when you came to South Carolina was right
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a U-Haul, towed my car, drove over there.
Do you think that, because a lot of times when we run away from our problems, it does not solve them. Um, do you think that helped you?
Getting out of the area, 100%. Um, and I was privileged to be able to get out of the area because a lot of people can't get sober living in the same town that they grew up doing their stuff in, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but no, I was a lot of self-searching and a lot of like, self-forgiveness and a lot of I had to realize that I had done people wrong. I had ruined friendships. I had taken advantage of friendships and taken them for granted. And I had to admit to myself that I was wrong and I'd been doing wrong and then kind of just move on for that. And it's a huge lifestyle change too. You got to learn how to replace positive things with those negative things.
Oh, you're absolutely
Um,
right.
you know
I
what I
talk I
mean?
talk
For
about it
me,
all the time, how you've got to find a hobby.
you
You
got to
got to
find a
find
hobby.
something to fill that time.
Yeah. And even things that I used to do that were hobbies then, even while I was using, I don't enjoy anymore. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
No, I talk about that all
I
the time.
if I was going and getting drunk and playing pool, I don't like playing pool anymore now. You know what I mean? Just as an
Yep.
example.
Yeah.
I don't like to associate those things. Honestly, it's been long enough for me to where I don't even think about it anymore. I don't talk about it much just because to me it doesn't matter anymore. I've moved on. I'm past it. No reason to like keep reliving it or readjusting or anything like that. Things are good now. I'm where I need to be now. Happy where I'm at now. So it was definitely a life lesson for sure, and I took a lot away from everything that was going on before.
Well, I gotta tell you, man, I'm proud of you, dude.
Appreciate
Like
that.
for real. Like I really am proud of you, man, because it takes a lot to get sober and to
Yeah,
change your whole entire life. I mean, because it's a total lifestyle change when you get sober. All the
yeah,
things that we did before that no longer can do those things anymore. Um, like you said, we associate all these things with whatever the drug or drink is, and when we stop using or drinking, we kind of are stuck, we're lost. Everything that we know gets turned upside down, and we kind of have to rediscover ourselves, redevelop who we are as a person, and that can be kind of uncomfortable and it can be kind of tough, and that's why a lot of people will fall back into those old patterns again. Um, especially after they get a little bit of time under their belt. There's always this idea, I've got it fixed now. I've got this under control. I can do it just on Friday nights. And that it only takes one time and you're right back into the throes of it and you're back using or drinking as much or worse than you were before. And all it would have taken is one slip up and you probably would have been right back in that same position again.
no, for sure.
Which is good that you probably moved away and came here because, you lost contact with all those, your dealers and all those people, and
Yeah,
you didn't know where to find that kind of stuff here or whatever, um, or whatever it may be. And but I don't recommend that for most people, to run away, um, because those problems are going to follow you. I mean, that's what happened with me.
Yeah.
I left the club thinking, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I left that job, man. Just being completely honest with you. It was a very stressful job.
Yeah.
I was always stressed out. It was just a lot. And I mean, that was a
Yeah.
really hard job. And I thought that getting away from that was going to allow me to stop drinking. And if anything, my drinking just got worse after I left. It did not get any better. And instead of having those problems at work, I just created more problems in my personal life with my excessive drinking. And then things really started to fall apart. And now that I've gotten sober, man, looking back at all that and those times and the things that I used to do, I'm just so glad that I'm sober now. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you're sober now.
Yeah.
We can actually live
Definitely
our
enjoy life a lot more.
Oh man, and the time that you could,
It's like I do wake up and I say, I appreciate what I'm given now, and
yeah.
it's great to be able to, have money in your bank account, not
Oh
worry
my
about how you're
gosh.
getting gas in your car to go to work today. And the struggle of, am I going to have something or am I not going to have something? And how am I going to feel today if I don't have it? And what am I going to do? And those worries, I mean, they eat you alive, and they take you to a place you don't want to be,
Yeah,
and so no, I'm just through the grace of God, man, I'm blessed for what I have. And I'm blessed for what I don't have as well. I always say that too. I'm blessed for the things that I don't have anymore. And that's one of those, that lifestyle, that addiction. I'm glad that was taken away from me.
that's awesome, man. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for you that you're away from that now. And the thing is too, is like, spending time with your kids. You're actually there and
Mhm.
present for them, and every
Oh yeah.
minute that you're with them, you're actually with them. You
Oh,
know,
100%.
when you're high or drunk, man, you're like 10% there, if even that much. You're just so
It's like
caught
you're
up
just
in,
it's like you're trying to just get through it almost sometimes, just like anything.
yeah, because you can't
And it's
wait
not
for the
present.
next, like if let's say you're out with your kids somewhere when you're in active addiction. Um, your whole thought process is when can I get away from this so I can go use again
Yeah.
or drink again away from my kids because I don't want them to see it. So you're just like counting the minutes down, like, all right, one more time down that slide, and then we got to go because dad's got to hurry up and get home. And you're just sitting there like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And then as soon as they get done, you're hauling butt home so that you can crack that bottle or whatever it may be. And that's all you care about. And then your kids, go play in your room, dad's gonna go do this, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I can finally get high again or get drunk again or whatever it is. And you're in that sweet spot, and then you're not
Yeah.
present for the rest of the day. And now we
And
can,
that's a reality of it. And it's disgusting to hear out loud. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
like that was a part of what I was for a moment. You know what I mean? And it
yeah,
wasn't always like that, but for a minute or a time or two, it may have been. And look at that's where that self forgiveness comes in. Because if you sit there and you think about, oh, I didn't do this with my kids, I didn't do that, like you're gonna end up hating yourself and just fall into despair and depression, and you're gonna put yourself in that mindset to where you're gonna not give them your full capabilities now. You know what I mean? So it's that self preservation and self forgiveness that is a huge part of that. Like if the Lord can forgive you, you can forgive yourself. And
absolutely.
and it's you can't harbor those feelings. And hearing back and just thinking about like, man, I can't believe I did that. Still, is kind of like you let yourself down. You know what I mean? You can't just ignore those emotions.
I know,
You just know you don't want to ever go back to that.
I know. Trust me, it's hard for me sometimes. I'll start
Yeah,
beating myself up. Just the other day, I did a show on all the wasted time, and I still have a lot of regret because there's years that I'll never get back. I see my oldest son now, and there's so many years that I could have been making memories with him, and I didn't.
yeah,
All three of my children, but I would say my oldest son, like I really lost a lot of time with him in those precious years,
yeah.
and they're gone forever, and I'll never get them back. And it's one of the things that sucks about addiction, man. It takes us away from everything that we love and everything that's important to us. And it's not until we get sober and get a clear mind again that we realize like how important that stuff really, really is to us. Like because it is. I mean, it's life. It's the most important thing in the world.
I will say also after, 'cause I pretty much got sober on the drive over there. When I was driving the U-Haul is pretty much when I was getting kind of started getting clean over there. Um, but even it took me, they say that, if you're 30 days clean, you're sober. I really don't think that's the truth. I think you might be clean or you might be sober, but you're not quite clean yet. But it took me about a year, man, to even get a year, maybe a year and a half to even get feeling okay in this new lifestyle. Like it's you can't put a time limit on when you're gonna
No,
feel and be okay.
no,
It takes time, and it took me a good year to get my sleep right, to get my routine right, to
yeah,
get my eating under control, to focus and like having nightmares and not sleeping good. And it took a year and a half almost to kind of just get back to feeling normal. Like, okay, well, this is what life is supposed to be. So I don't. It's hard to not get discouraged when you're 3 or 4 months in. And you're like, well, nothing's changing. I don't feel good. I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna go back to doing what I was, and it takes time and it takes a good amount of time, which is, it's a lot of years of undoing that you have to do.
no, you're exactly right, dude. You're exactly right. I really appreciate you adding that.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, I think we need to go ahead and get off here because we're about to run out of time, and I don't want to take any more of your time this afternoon because I know you got to pick
Yeah,
your
man.
daughter up from school. So I just want to
So I
thank you
say,
so much again for coming on today, man.
yeah, man, I appreciate everything you're doing, man. What you're doing here is real strong and real powerful. And it's hard to put yourself out there in such a vulnerable state. And I think you've done a great job at that. And
I
you're
really
helping a lot of
appreciate that,
people. So
man.
I am very proud of you, my friend. And I'll be there in a couple weeks. I had to postpone for the hurricane, but I'll be
I
there
know.
around the 29th. So I'm going to come see you.
Sweet, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, dude. And once
Yep.
again, I'm super proud of you too, man. I
Thank you.
mean, and you've done some really good things with yourself, man. So good job. And
Thank you.
I really want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for coming on today, man. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
All right, brother. Well, you have a great day.
All right. You too, bro.
All right, man.
Bye.
All right, man.